All right, once we have all our lines on our paper, step 2 is to turn your paper to the back. You should already have your name. If you don't have your name, go ahead and add it before we do anything else. And then the next element of art that we're going to focus on is shape. So the first thing I want you to do is make a mark about 2 fingers away from the edge of your paper at the top. Make a little mark right there. And then you're going to draw a line that goes all the way down. You're drawing a vertical line. It doesn't matter if your paper is this way or that way or however, but hold your paper portrait mode on the back. Measure about 2 fingers width. When I draw a line, I don't just go from the top to the bottom because it's going to get crooked. I hold my pencil from a little bit further back and I lean my pencil over, so I'm almost using the pencil like a brush. And I'm just going to kind of make these light lines, and I'm just following the edge of the paper. So I'm carefully just following along. And if I accidentally come off this way too much, then I can easily just straighten it out. So make your line all the way to the bottom. It doesn't have to be a perfect straight line, but if you do it this way, it's a lot easier to keep it straight because you're just following this edge of the paper all the way down. All right. That is a shape, and it's also a geometric shape because it has straight edges. It's called a rectangle. It's just a really, really long rectangle. In the rest of the paper that you have missing, if you have any extra little pieces like this that you just want to erase, that's fine. You're going to be drawing shapes in the rest of this. You want some big shapes and some little shapes. So what I like to do, and you're going to be using all the paper, but I'm going to show you how you're going to do that. I'm going to make a big rectangle here by doing the same technique that I was using on this line, but sideways. So I'm going to, again, taking my pencil, holding it from the back. When I write like this, and I hold my pencil up straight. But when I'm drawing, I push my hand back, I lean my pencil over, and I'm using the edge of my pencil tip. And I'm going to push that line to the side, and now I'm following the edge of the top. Again, this does not have to be perfect. This is just an example. So now I have another rectangle at the top. If that one's too big, I want to have a smaller one, I can do the same thing down here. But I definitely want this one. Everybody has to have this one. This is the most important one. Now I have a smaller rectangle, a larger rectangle. Now I want a variety of shapes. So I'm going to come to this area right here, and I'm just going to start drawing some shapes. You need to have at least one organic shape that is recognizable. So for example, let me see. By recognizable, I mean that when I see it, I know what it is. So I can draw, for example, this, and everybody kind of recognizes that that's a moon. I can draw this, and everybody can recognize that that is a star. So these are organic shapes because they appear in nature, sort of, like a starfish, I guess. But you can recognize them. Now, here's what I don't want you to do. This, if you go like this, that is no longer a shape. That is like a bunch of different shapes put together. So this is not a shape. But if you want to draw the shape of a flower, you would do the outside part, like this. So that one, it would be acceptable because that is a shape. And think of it as a silhouette. Like if you're looking at it in the dark, like this would all be just black. You're holding these up to the light, it would just look black. So everything is solid. There are no details inside. Another recognizable shape would be like a leaf. Or if you want to make the same thing but longer, it's going to end up looking like a feather. Okay, but again, no details. No details. These are all recognizable organic shapes. Another one would be like a fish. Okay, let's say that you draw a fish and I just missed something very important because my fish needs to have a fin on the top. So if you forgot whatever piece that you didn't do, you can always go back and add it, but then you have to erase the inside part. Same thing with the flower. If you did it this way, just erase the circle that's in the middle. Okay, there is my organic shape. It's kind of like cookie cutters too. Think about cookie cutters. A cookie cutter is you just press down to make the shape of the thing that you're doing. And a cookie cutter wouldn't have like lines inside or details inside. So nothing has details inside, just the outside shapes. Okay, so I'm going to put a couple of these. Let's try to do a fish. You don't want them to be too big or too small. You don't want a little bitty one. And you don't want it to take up the whole paper either. So let me make a fish. This time I'm going to remember to do the top part. He's smiling, bottom fin. And then I'll give them a tail. Okay, and notice I'm also holding my pencil backward because when I draw, I make my lines really light. Look how dark my name is. And if I try to erase that, it's going to be harder to erase. But this one, if I make a mistake, I can erase it really well and the line's going to be gone. So always kind of get into the habit of drawing really gently and softly so that you can erase as you go. I also want to make a moon shape. So this part is kind of like a circle. It's kind of like the same thing I was doing here. I'm going to use it almost like a brush. And then I'm going to make the inner circle. And this, like when I'm using it like a brush, I can adjust it. You see, it's almost like I'm sculpting it as I go, like if it was clay and I'm just kind of sculpting it. So this is how artists make their lines so good, because they're really ugly, but they're fixing them as they go. And once you like the lines, like now I know kind of where I want my moon, then I can go back. I'm holding it closer to the end, and I'm making the line a little darker. Now I want maybe one that's a large shape, and I'm going to go with, we already did some geometric shapes, but there are other geometric shapes. You can do all kinds of triangles. There's, you know, equilateral triangle, there's a right triangle with a right angle, you can do rectangles, squares. A circle kind of overlaps. A circle is geometric because, you know, it's a circle, but it also appears in nature, so a circle can be considered organic or geometric. What I don't want you to do is try to draw anything three-dimensional, because that is not a shape. Because it has a detail in there, that is a form. So we're not going to do forms, only shapes. Okay, just like the back, we only do shapes, nothing that has any lines inside of it. But we do want to have some geometric shapes. So let me make a big triangle. I like circles. I'm going to make another circle. The other shape that you have to have, so you have to have organic that is recognizable, you have to have geometric, and then you have to have at least one shape that is organic and not recognizable. These are my favorite. So since I know I have this much space over here, I'm going to try to make my shape kind of fits that. And this is where it's going to be a blob basically. So I'm going to just, you guys don't know, but I actually am obsessed with these random shapes. Maybe like that. Kind of looks like a claw. And this is just me just trying to fit it to the space. You don't have to do that. Organic shapes can have straight edges. You know, people sometimes think they can't have straight lines. They can. It's just that the whole shape is not something that has a name. Like if you look in your math book, this shape does not have a name. It's just like a blob. And also, it's nothing that exists in nature. You can't like point to something and say, oh, that's a blah, blah, blah. I saw that the other day in the pond. It doesn't really look like anything. Another trick is once you already have like the basic shape of it, if you want to make it look even more kind of weird, I like this little curve. You can like take a piece off of the edge. So maybe I want this to have like a circle shape, like somebody took a bite out of it, and then you can erase that. So those are just some ideas. It kind of looks like Spider-Man right there. Isn't that weird? In a weird way. That's the thing about abstract shapes. Sometimes you make something and you don't on purpose make it look like anything, but after you make it, it looks like something recognizable. All right, so I have my long rectangle. This is going to be the base, so that one doesn't really count. I have two rectangles here. I have two organic recognizable shapes. I have 2 geometric shapes. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I have this organic shape that is not recognizable. An organic blob. If you want to add more, I still see a space right here. Maybe you want to have a smaller shape of something. I don't know, something like that. So you're basically just filling it. Now, I don't want super tiny ones. I don't really want to do that yet, because here's what I'm going to explain to you. The next element of art that we're going to talk about is space. What I want to talk about right now is positive and negative space. So looking at this rectangle right here, okay, the shapes that we drew, those would be in the positive. So they're going to get colored. They're the things that we're looking at. And all this white space around it, that's called negative space. Okay, but we are not going to waste that. We're also going to be using the negative space. And the way we're going to do that is when we start cutting. So we're not going to cut these shapes today. We're going to color this paper first. But when we do start cutting them out, we're going to cut this part, and then we're going to cut all these little pieces. And with the things that are like left over, we're also going to cut those so that those are also going to become shapes. But they came out of the negative space.